The rain came down in sheets. It turned the already dark street into a river of shadows and reflected streetlights. I pulled my coat tighter, cursing myself for working late at the clinic again. Dr. Morrison had needed help with the inventory, and I'd stayed 2 hours past my shift because I was too nice to say no. That's the story of my life, really. My name is Alina Hayes. I'm 27 years old, and I'm a nurse practitioner at St. Mary's Free Clinic in one of the rougher neighborhoods of the city. It doesn't pay well, the hours are brutal, and most days I go home exhausted, wondering why I didn't just take that hospital job my mother keeps pushing me toward. But then I remember Mrs. Chen, who comes in every week for her blood pressure medication and always brings me homemade dumplings. Or little Marcus, whose asthma I manage, who draws me pictures of superheroes and calls me his hero. These people, my people, they need the clinic. They need someone who cares more about helping than about profit margins. So, I stay. And I walk home in the rain because my ancient Honda is in the shop again. And I can't afford both the car repair and this month's rent. The street was deserted at this hour, past midnight. Nothing was open except the occasional bodega with barred windows. I kept my head down, my hand wrapped around the pepper spray in my pocket. This neighborhood wasn't the worst in the city, but it wasn't safe either, especially not for a woman alone at night. I was 2 blocks from my apartment when I saw him. At first I thought it was just a pile of trash or discarded clothes in the alley entrance. But as I got closer, I realized it was a person. A man was slumped against the brick wall, rain pouring over him. Even from a distance, I could see the dark stain spreading across his white shirt. It was blood, a lot of it. Every survival instinct I had screamed at me to keep walking, to call 911 from a safe distance and let them handle it. This was how people got hurt, sticking their noses into situations that didn't concern them. But I was a nurse, and that man was bleeding out in the rain. I approached cautiously, my hand still on the pepper spray. "Sir, can you hear me?" There was no response. As I got closer, I could see he was young, maybe in his mid-30s, with dark hair plastered to his head by the rain. He wore expensive clothes, or what had been expensive before they'd been torn and blood-soaked. A white dress shirt, now mostly red, dark slacks, and leather shoes that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "Sir?" I knelt beside him, my knees instantly soaked through. "I'm a nurse. I'm going to help you, okay?" I pressed 2 fingers to his neck, feeling for a pulse. It was there, weak and thready, but present. He was alive. At least for now. I pulled out my phone to call 911, but his hand shot out with surprising speed, gripping my wrist. His eyes opened. They were dark, unfocused with pain, but fierce. "No hospitals," he managed to say. His voice was rough and accented. Italian, I thought. "No police, please." "You're bleeding out," I said firmly. "You need emergency care." "None." His grip tightened, despite his obvious weakness. "They'll find me. They'll finish what they started." They. Whoever had done this to him was still a threat, which meant if I called 911, if I got authorities involved, I might be putting both of us in danger. This was insane. I should call anyway, let the professionals handle it, and wash my hands of this situation before it got worse. But looking into his eyes, desperate, proud, and oddly vulnerable, I found myself making a decision that would change my life forever. "My apartment is 2 blocks from here," I heard myself say. "Can you walk if I help you?" Relief flooded his features. Yes. He couldn't. Not really. Getting him to his feet took all my strength. Even then, he leaned heavily on me, his arm draped across my shoulders. His breath came in harsh gasps. We must have looked like a pair of drunks stumbling home from a bar. Those 2 blocks felt like miles. Every step was agony. I could feel it in the way his body tensed, the barely suppressed groans, and the trembling in his muscles. Blood dripped steadily from his shirt, despite my attempts to apply pressure to the wound while supporting his weight. "Stay with me," I kept saying. "Just a little further. Don't you dare die on me." "Wouldn't dream of it," he managed between gasps. Too pretty to disappoint. Even half dead. The man was flirting. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We finally reached my building, a modest walk-up in desperate need of renovation. The elevator was broken, of course, because the universe had a sense of humor. I half-carried, half-dragged him up 3 flights of stairs, my muscles screaming in protest. My apartment was small, just a studio with a kitchen alcove and a bathroom that had seen better days. But it was clean, it was warm, and it had a bed where I could lay this bleeding stranger and try to save his life. I got him onto the bed, and he collapsed with a groan that spoke of profound relief and pain. His eyes were already starting to unfocus again, consciousness slipping. "Stay awake," I ordered, already moving to my bathroom for my medical supplies. I always kept a well-stocked first aid kit. It's an occupational hazard of being a nurse in a rough neighborhood. What's your name? Does it matter? His words were slurring now. It matters to me. I'm Alina. And you are? Dangerous, he mumbled. I'm dangerous, Alina. You should have kept walking. Probably. I returned with my kit, scissors in hand. But I didn't. Now hold still. I need to cut away your shirt. I worked quickly, cutting through the expensive fabric to expose his torso. What I found made me suck in a breath. There were 3 gunshot wounds. One in his shoulder, one grazing his ribs, and one that had entered just below his chest on the left side. That last one was the problem. It was still bleeding, which meant it might have nicked something important. But it was the other things I noticed that made my hands pause. Scars, old and new, crisscrossed his torso like a roadmap of violence. A large, intricate tattoo covered his right shoulder and chest. It was obviously expensive. More ink was on his arms, disappearing under what remained of his shirt sleeves. This was not a man who lived a safe, normal life. The one on your left side. When did you get shot? I needed to know how much time I had. An hour. Maybe 2. His eyes were closed now. Lost track. 2 hours maximum. That was both good and bad. Good, because he'd survived this long. Bad, because he was still bleeding, which meant my window to help him was closing fast. I'm going to clean and pack these wounds, then stitch what I can, I explained, pulling on gloves. I don't have anything for the pain except ibuprofen. This is going to hurt a lot. Used to it, but his jaw clenched in anticipation. I started with the shoulder wound. It was through and through, which was lucky. I cleaned it with antiseptic, packed it with gauze, and stitched the entry and exit points as neatly as I could manage. He didn't make a sound, though I could see his knuckles were white where he gripped the sheets. The rib graze was easier. It was painful but not life-threatening. I cleaned and dressed it quickly. The chest wound was the problem. I probed it gently, trying to determine if the bullet was still inside. His sharp intake of breath told me I'd found something. The bullet's still in there, I said. I need to get it out, but I don't have the equipment for proper surgery. This is going to be rough. Do it. 2 words, but they carried absolute trust. Why did he trust me? He didn't know me, didn't know if I was qualified for this. For all he knew, I could be making everything worse. But I didn't have time to question his trust. I had to work. I used forceps from my kit, probing as gently as I could while still being effective. The bullet wasn't deep. It had lodged against a rib, which had probably saved his life. If it had gone deeper into his lung or heart, he'd already be dead. It took 15 agonizing minutes, but I finally extracted the bullet. It was a small, deadly piece of metal that I set aside in a dish. Evidence, my mind supplied. Though evidence of what crime, I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Got it, I said, relief flooding through me. Now I just need to stitch you up and pray it doesn't get infected. I worked as quickly as I could, stitching the wound closed with practiced precision. I'd done this hundreds of times, not on gunshot wounds usually, but on lacerations and injuries that needed immediate attention. By the time I finished, my hands were shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. The stranger had passed out somewhere around the 2nd stitch. His breathing was shallow but steady, his color slightly better now that he wasn't actively bleeding out. I cleaned up the worst of the blood, covered him with a blanket, and set my phone alarm to check on him every hour. Then I collapsed in my only chair, too wired to sleep despite the exhaustion. What had I just done? Harbored a fugitive? Aided and abetted a crime? The man in my bed had been shot 3 times. People didn't get shot 3 times by accident. He was involved in something dangerous. Something that should have made me call the police the moment I'd found him. But I hadn't. And now he was here, unconscious in my bed, his life temporarily saved by me. I looked at him in the dim light from my kitchen. I really looked at him for the first time. Even battered and bloody, he was handsome, with sharp features and a strong jaw darkened with stubble. The kind of face that belonged on billboards or movie screens. The tattoos that covered his arms and chest were works of art. Everything about him screamed money and power, except for the 3 bullet holes I'd just stitched up. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Dr. Morrison. Thanks for staying late. You're a lifesaver. If only she knew how literal that was tonight. I dozed fitfully in the chair, jerking awake every time my alarm went off to check his vitals. His pulse was steady, his breathing even. There were no signs of shock or internal bleeding. Against all odds, he seemed to be stable. It was around 4 a.m. when I heard it. A soft groan from the bed. I was up immediately, moving to his side. His eyes were open, unfocused and pain-filled, but conscious. "Hey," I said softly. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been shot." His voice was rough, but there was dry humor in it. 3 times, if memory serves. Good memory. I pressed my hand to his forehead, checking for fever. He was slightly warm, but not dangerously so. You're lucky. Another hour in the rain and you would have died. Lucky, he repeated, his eyes finally focusing on my face. Is that what I am? You're alive. That's lucky in my book. I moved away to get water and ibuprofen. You should drink something. Stay hydrated. I helped him sit up enough to swallow the pills and sip water. His hand shook slightly, weakness finally catching up with him. Thank you, he said quietly. For saving me, for not calling the police, he gestured vaguely at his bandaged torso, all of this. You're welcome. I settled back into my chair. Now, are you going to tell me who you are and who shot you? Or do I get to keep calling you dangerous in my head? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Dangerous works, but you can call me Dante. Dante Caruso. The name meant nothing to me, which seemed to amuse him. You really don't know, do you? His eyes studied me carefully. Don't read the papers or watch the news. I work 60 hours a week at a free clinic. I barely have time to sleep, let alone stay current on local gossip. I crossed my arms. Should I know who you are? For your sake, probably not. He closed his eyes, exhaustion winning. But since you saved my life, you deserve the truth. When I wake up, Alina Hayes, I'll tell you exactly who you rescued tonight. How do you know my name? I hadn't told him my last name. Your nursing license. He gestured weakly to where I'd thrown my coat. I saw it when you were cutting off my shirt. Observant, even when you're dying, apparently. I stood, adjusting his blanket. Asleep. Dante Caruso. We'll talk when you're stronger. Alina. His hand caught mine before I could move away. Thank you for seeing someone worth saving instead of a problem to avoid. Everyone's worth saving, I said simply. Even dangerous strangers in the rain. His smile was genuine this time, if tired. You might regret that philosophy soon. But as I settled back into my chair, watching him drift into a deeper, more peaceful sleep, I didn't think I would. Dangerous or not, criminal or victim, he was my patient now. And I didn't abandon my patients, even if they did turn out to be the most dangerous man in the city. I woke to the sound of movement in my apartment. For a disoriented moment, I couldn't remember why that was wrong. I lived alone. There shouldn't be anyone else here. Then memory crashed back. The wounded stranger, Dante Caruso. The man I'd pulled from the rain and stitched back together. I bolted upright in my chair, my neck protesting the awkward angle. Morning light streamed through my small window, and the man who should have been unconscious in my bed was sitting up, his bare feet on the floor, trying to stand. What are you doing? I was across the room in seconds, my hands pushing him back down. You were shot 3 times less than 12 hours ago. You need to rest. I need to contact my people. His voice was stronger than last night, but I could see the pain lines around his eyes. They'll be looking for me. If they think I'm dead, they'll retaliate. People will die. Then call them from here. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand. But you're not going anywhere until I check your wounds and make sure you're not about to bleed out on my floor. He studied me for a moment, something like amusement flickering in those dark eyes. You're very bossy for someone who just met me. I'm a nurse. Bossy comes with the territory. I started unwrapping the bandage on his shoulder. And I didn't spend half the night keeping you alive just to watch you kill yourself being stubborn. Faire point. He hissed as I exposed the wound. How bad is it? Better than I expected, actually. I examined the stitches carefully. No signs of infection yet. Minimal swelling. You heal fast. Family trait. He accepted my phone when I handed it to him. Thank you. I busied myself checking his other wounds while he made his call, speaking in rapid Italian. I didn't understand most of it, but I caught a few words alive. Safe. Urgent. His tone was commanding. Authoritative. Nothing like the weak man I'd found in the rain. Marco will be here in an hour, he said, handing back my phone. I'll be out of your hair soon, and you can forget this ever happened. Forget? I started applying fresh bandages. You think I'm gonna forget finding a man shot 3 times and performing amateur surgery in my apartment? You should. His voice turned serious. For your own safety, Alina. The less you know about me, the better. Then maybe you shouldn't have promised to tell me who you are. I secured the last bandage with perhaps more force than necessary. And it's too late for ignorance. I already Googled your name while you were sleeping. His eyes widened slightly. And apparently, you're a very private person, or you have very good people scrubbing your online presence. I sat back on my heels. I found exactly 3 photos and a handful of mentions, all business-related. Construction, real estate, restaurants. Nothing that explains why someone would shoot you. That's by design. He reached for his ruined shirt, attempting to put it on despite the obvious pain. My family values discretion. Your family being... I helped him with the shirt, noticing how he winced when fabric touched his wounds. Complicated. He met my eyes. And dangerous. Which is why you need to forget about me, Alina. Forget you ever saw me. When Marco arrives, you tell him I was already conscious when you found me, that you just provided basic first aid. You don't mention bringing me here. You don't mention the surgery. Why? I didn't like being told to lie. Because knowing about me, being connected to me, makes you a target. His hand caught mine, the contact sending an unexpected jolt through me. I'm grateful for what you did. More grateful than I can express. But I won't let that gratitude put you in danger. Too late. I didn't pull my hand away. I already put myself in danger when I decided not to leave you in that alley. Now I'm involved, whether you like it or not. Stubborn woman. Stubborn nurse. I finally extracted my hand, moving to make coffee because I needed something to do. You want breakfast? I have eggs, toast, and questionable milk that might still be good. You're offering me breakfast? He sounded bemused. You need to eat. Protein helps with healing. I pulled out eggs and bread. So yes, I'm offering you breakfast before your people arrive and whisk you away to wherever dangerous men go to recover. I cooked in silence, hyper-aware of him watching me. When I glanced over, I found him studying my apartment with the same careful attention he'd given me. He was noting the medical textbooks stacked on my coffee table, the photos of my family on the wall, and the general lived-in chaos of someone who worked too much and lived too little. You live alone, he observed. Very observant. I cracked eggs into the pan. Are you always this nosy with people who save your life? I like to know who I'm dealing with. He shifted on the bed, trying to find a more comfortable position. Alina Hayes, 27, nurse practitioner at St. Mary's Free Clinic. Originally from Ohio, moved here 5 years ago. No social media presence. No husband or boyfriend, based on the lack of male belongings. You work too much, based on the 3 different clinic schedules pinned to your fridge. And you care too much, based on the fact that you risked your life to save a stranger. Ice crept down my spine. How do you know all that? Your name badge has your age. The clinic schedule is visible from here. The photos on your wall show flat Midwest landscapes, and your slight accent places you in the Ohio region. He gestured to my sparse apartment. No partner is obvious. And caring too much? His lips curved slightly. You literally performed surgery on a gunshot victim in your apartment instead of calling the police. That speaks to either extreme stupidity or extreme compassion. Could be both, I muttered, plating the eggs. Here, eat. I helped him settle against the headboard with a pillow behind him, then handed him the plate. He ate slowly, carefully, like someone rediscovering the simple pleasure of food after thinking he'd never taste it again. This is good, he said after a few bites. It's scrambled eggs. Hard to mess up. I've had expensive meals in 5-star restaurants that weren't as satisfying as this. He met my eyes. Thank you, Alina. For everything. You already thanked me. I picked up my own eggs, suddenly nervous. Multiple times. I'll probably thank you multiple more times before I leave. He set down his fork. What you did last night, the risk you took, most people wouldn't have. They would have kept walking, called the police from a distance, protected themselves. But you didn't. I'm a nurse. I took an oath. The oath doesn't require you to bring bleeding criminals into your home. His voice was gentle but firm. That was a choice, Alina. A brave, reckless, potentially life-changing choice. Are you a criminal? I had to ask. He was quiet for a long moment. By legal definitions, yes. I operate businesses that exist in gray areas. I make decisions that sometimes require violence. I protect what's mine using methods that wouldn't hold up in court. His eyes never left mine. But I'm not a monster. I don't hurt innocents. I don't traffic in human misery. And I take care of the people in my territory. People like those you serve at your clinic. That's a very convenient morality. It's an honest morality. He shifted, wincing. I won't lie to you, Alina. Not about who I am or what I do. You deserve that much after saving my life. A knock at the door made us both freeze. I checked my phone. It had only been 40 minutes since his call. His people were early. That's Marco, Dante said. But there was tension in his voice. Let him in, but stay behind me. You can barely stand, I protested. Alina. His voice carried command. Now, behind me. I moved to the door, checking the peephole. A man stood there, tall and muscular, wearing an expensive suit despite the early hour. He looked like he could break me in half without breaking a sweat. Who is it? I called through the door. Marco Rossi. I'm here for Dante Caruso. His voice was deep and professional. He called me from this number. I glanced back at Dante, who nodded. I opened the door, and Marco's eyes swept over me in one assessing glance before moving past to where Dante sat on my bed. Boss. Relief flooded Marco's face. We thought, when you didn't make the meeting, when we found blood at the warehouse, I'm fine. Dante's voice was steady. Thanks to Miss Hayes here. She found me, patched me up. Without her, I'd be dead. Marco turned to me, and I saw genuine gratitude in his eyes. Then we owe you a debt, Miss Hayes. I was just doing my job. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly feeling very small in my own apartment. Your job doesn't include performing surgery on gunshot victims in your apartment. Marco moved to Dante's side, examining him with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen plenty of violence. We need to get you somewhere secure, boss. The Volkov brothers think they killed you. When they find out otherwise, they'll come looking. The Volkov brothers? I couldn't stop the question. The men who shot me. Dante was already trying to stand, accepting Marco's support. They thought they could take my territory while I was distracted with the port deal. They were wrong. You need to rest, I protested. At least another day before you. I appreciate your medical opinion. But I can't rest while my people think I'm dead, and my enemies think they've won. He was on his feet now, swaying slightly but standing. Marco, we need to move. I'll rest when I'm somewhere secure. Dante's eyes found mine. Alina, Marco will leave money to cover your trouble. Don't come looking for me. Don't mention this to anyone. Forget I was ever here. That's not necessary, I started. It is. He moved toward the door, each step clearly agonizing, though he tried to hide it. And Alina, thank you for seeing someone worth saving instead of a problem to avoid. He'd said something similar last night, I realized. Like he wasn't used to people choosing to help him. Marco handed me an envelope, thick with what I assumed was cash. For your trouble, Miss Hayes. And for your discretion. The boss is right. You need to forget this happened, for your own safety. They were at the door when I heard myself say, wait. Both men turned, Dante's dark eyes questioning. Your stitches need to be checked in 3 days, I said. And the wounds need proper care to avoid infection. You should have someone look at them. Someone who knows what they're doing. I have a doctor on call, Marco started. I want Alina. Dante's voice was firm. If she's willing. Every logical part of my brain screamed that I should say no. I should take whatever money was in that envelope, lock my door, and never think about Dante Caruso again. But I thought about those wounds, about the amateur surgery I'd performed, and about a man dying because he was too stubborn to seek proper care. Fine, I heard myself say. 3 days. You come here. I check the stitches, make sure you're healing properly. Then we're done. Something flickered in Dante's eyes. Satisfaction, maybe, or something deeper. 3 days. I'll call first. Then they were gone, leaving me alone in my apartment with the scent of antiseptic and blood still lingering in the air. I looked at the envelope Marco had left. It contained $5,000 in cash, more money than I made in a month at the clinic. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt like I'd done something wrong, harboring a criminal and accepting money for medical care that skirted every legal and ethical boundary I'd sworn to uphold. Instead, I felt alive for the first time in years. My carefully controlled, responsible life had veered into something dangerous and uncertain. And God help me. I wanted to see where it would lead. 3 days felt like 3 weeks. I went through the motions of my life work at the clinic, treating patients, going home to my empty apartment. But my mind kept drifting back to dark eyes and dangerous promises. To the man I'd stitched back together who looked at me like I was something precious. Jenna noticed at work. She always noticed. Okay, what's going on with you? She asked during our lunch break on day 2. Jenna was the clinic's other nurse practitioner, my work wife, and entirely too perceptive for my comfort. You've been distracted for 2 days, and you keep checking your phone like you're expecting important news. I'm fine. I picked at my salad without appetite. Just tired. Tired. I've seen. This is different. Her eyes narrowed. This is that look you get when you're hiding something. What happened? Did you finally cave and go on that date with Dr. Morrison? God, no. The thought of dating my well-meaning but boring boss made me shudder. And I'm not hiding anything. Liar. But she let it drop, moving on to gossip about the new volunteer who couldn't handle the sight of blood. I made appropriate noises, but my mind was elsewhere. Would he call? Or had the past 3 days given him time to think, to realize that involving me further was a mistake? Maybe I'd never hear from him again. Maybe I'd just be a story he told someday, about the nurse who saved his life and asked for nothing in return. The thought bothered me more than it should have. That evening, I was making dinner, pasta, because it was cheap and I could make enough for leftovers. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. My heart kicked into overdrive. Hello? Alina. Dante's voice was warm and familiar, despite having only heard it once. "How are you?" "I'm fine." I turned off the stove, suddenly too nervous to cook. "How are you? How are the wounds healing?" "I have a doctor who's been monitoring them, but I'd like you to check them as well. Tomorrow evening, if you're free." "Tomorrow, not tonight." Was he giving me time to back out? Or was he just being practical, making sure I wasn't working? "Tomorrow works," I said. "What time?" 7. "I'll come to you, unless you'd prefer somewhere else." "My apartment is fine. Safer." Some part of my brain supplied. "Neutral territory." "Dante, are you sure this is a good idea? You said yourself that knowing you puts me in danger." "It does. No false reassurances. Which is why I have people watching your building, making sure you're safe. If I'm going to put you at risk by involving you in my life, the least I can do is ensure that risk is managed." People watching my building. The thought should have frightened me. Instead, I felt oddly protected. "That's very thorough of you. I protect what's mine." A pause. "And you're mine now, Alina. Whether you like it or not. You saved my life. That creates a bond I take very seriously." "I'm not yours," I protested. But the words lacked conviction. "Aren't you?" His voice dropped lower. "You've thought about me these past 3 days. Wondered if I was okay. Checked your phone hoping I'd call. Don't lie and say you haven't." He was right, damn him. That's just normal concern. I worry about all my patients. I'm not your patient. I'm the man you risked everything to save. The man who can't stop thinking about soft hands and gentle words. About someone who saw me bleeding in the rain and decided I was worth saving. He paused. "Tomorrow at 7, Alina. I'll see you then." He hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone and trying to process what had just happened. Dante Caruso, who I'd met once while he was half dead, claimed I belonged to him. And instead of being offended or frightened, I was anticipating tomorrow with an intensity that scared me. I barely slept that night. My mind played through a dozen scenarios of how tomorrow could go. He'd arrive. I'd check his wounds. He'd leave. Simple. Professional. Nothing more than a follow-up appointment. Except nothing about this was simple or professional, and we both knew it. The next day crawled by. I saw 12 patients at the clinic, filed paperwork, and restocked supplies. They were normal, routine tasks that felt surreal when my mind kept drifting to dark eyes and dangerous promises. "You're doing it again," Jenna said as we were closing up. The distracted thing. "Are you going to tell me what's going on? Or do I have to guess?" "There's nothing going on." The lie tasted bitter. "Alina Hayes, I've known you for 3 years. I know when you're lying." She crossed her arms. "Is it a man? Please tell me you're finally dating someone. Anyone. Even Dr. Morrison would be better than your current hermit lifestyle." "It's not Dr. Morrison." I grabbed my coat. "And I'm not a hermit. I'm busy." "You're hiding." Her voice softened. "Ever since Marcus. You've been hiding. Working too much. Never going out. Never taking chances. I get it, he hurt you. But you can't let one bad relationship turn you into a shut-in." Marcus. My ex-boyfriend, who'd seemed perfect until he wasn't. Who'd slowly isolated me from friends, controlled my time, and made me feel small and worthless. Who I'd finally found the courage to leave 2 years ago, moving cities to ensure he couldn't follow. "I'm not hiding," I said quietly. "I'm being careful. There's a difference." "Is there?" But Jenna let it drop, giving me a hug goodbye. "Whatever's going on, just be safe, okay?" "I'm always safe." Another lie, considering I was about to let a crime boss into my apartment. At 6:30, I was home, showered, and changed into clean clothes. Not fancy, just jeans and a comfortable sweater. But I'd made an effort for professional reasons, I told myself. It had nothing to do with wanting to look nice for him. At exactly 7, there was a knock at my door. I checked the peephole and found Dante standing there. He looked nothing like the bleeding man I'd dragged from the rain. He wore dark jeans and a black button-down. Expensive but casual. His color was good, his stance strong. If not for the slight stiffness in his movements, I wouldn't have known he'd been shot 3 times less than a week ago. "Hi," I said, opening the door. "Alina." The way he said my name made it sound like a caress. "Thank you for seeing me." "Of course." I stepped back to let him in, trying to ignore how much larger he seemed in my small apartment. "How are you feeling?" "Better every day." He moved to the bed, my bed, which I'd changed the sheets on twice since he'd bled all over it. "Your handiwork is holding up well. Let me see." I gathered my medical supplies, willing my hands not to shake. "Shirt off." He complied without hesitation, unbuttoning the shirt to reveal the bandages I'd applied and the body beneath. Lean muscle, olive skin, and those intricate tattoos I'd noticed before. Now they were visible in full detail. A large piece covered his right shoulder and chest, religious imagery mixed with Italian script. More ink wound down his arms, disappearing below the waistband of his jeans. See something you like? His voice held amusement. I'm examining your wounds, I said primly, though heat flooded my cheeks. Hold still. I unwrapped the bandages carefully, relieved to find the wounds healing well. No signs of infection, minimal scarring. The stitches were holding. His doctor had clearly been doing good work. You heal fast, I observed, cleaning around the stitches. Faster than normal. Family trait. We're sturdy. His eyes tracked my movements. Good genes. Good genes don't explain this. I traced a scar on his ribs, old and long-healed. Or this. Another scar on his shoulder. How many times have you been shot? Counting this time. 7, he said as casually as someone might mention getting 7 haircuts. Stabbed 4 times. Beaten more times than I can count. It comes with the territory. That's not normal, Dante. I applied fresh bandages, perhaps more firmly than necessary. People don't get shot 7 times if they're living safe lives. I don't live a safe life. His hand caught mine, stilling my movements. I told you that. I'm dangerous, Alina. Being around me is dangerous. But I'm grateful you're here anyway. I'm a nurse. It's what I do. I tried to pull my hand away, but he held firm. No. You're a nurse who treats people at a free clinic, who works too hard for too little pay because you care, who sees someone bleeding in the rain and decides they're worth saving, even when common sense says to walk away. His thumb traced circles on my palm. You're extraordinary, Alina, and I'm selfish enough to want you in my life, despite the risks. You barely know me. I know enough. He pulled me closer, until I was standing between his knees, his hands on my waist. I know you're brave and compassionate. I know you value life above rules. I know your hands shake when you're nervous, but stay steady when you're working. I know you've been thinking about me as much as I've been thinking about you. That's very presumptuous. But I didn't pull away. Am I wrong? His dark eyes searched mine. Tell me you haven't wondered, haven't thought about that night, about what it means that our paths crossed, about why you couldn't just walk past me. He wasn't wrong. I had wondered. I had lain awake playing through scenarios of what might have happened if I'd made different choices. If I'd called 911 instead of bringing him home. If I'd never looked down that alley at all. What do you want from me? I asked quietly. Honestly, I don't know yet. His hands on my waist tightened slightly. I know I want to see you again. I want to know more about you. I want to understand what it is about you that makes me feel like I can breathe for the first time in years. That's a lot of pressure for a second meeting. I know. He released me, giving me space. Which is why I'm not pushing. I'm just asking. Can I see you again? Not as a patient, but as whatever this is between us. I should have said no. I should have maintained boundaries, protected myself from whatever complications came with being involved with Dante Caruso. But looking into his eyes, seeing genuine vulnerability beneath the dangerous exterior, I found my resolve crumbling. Dinner, I heard myself say. Something normal. Public. Where we can talk without the threat of you bleeding out on my furniture. His smile was devastating. I know a place. Tomorrow night? I work until 6. I'll pick you up at 7. He stood, buttoning his shirt with careful movements. Thank you, Alina, for checking my wounds, for agreeing to dinner, for not running screaming when a smart woman would have. Who says I'm smart? I walked him to the door. I'm the idiot who brought a gunshot victim home instead of calling the police. You're the woman who saw someone worth saving. He paused in the doorway. That's not stupidity, Alina. That's courage. And it's rarer than you think. After he left, I stood in my apartment and tried to process what I'd just agreed to. Dinner with Dante Caruso. A real date, not just a medical follow-up. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Thank you again. Sleep well, Alina. Tomorrow at 7. D. I saved the number, knowing even as I did it that I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Getting involved with Dante meant entering his world, a world of violence and danger and moral ambiguity, but it also meant feeling alive for the first time in years. It meant being seen and valued by someone who looked at me like I was extraordinary instead of ordinary. Was it worth the risk? I didn't know yet, but I was going to find out. The restaurant Dante chose was nothing like I expected. Instead of the upscale establishments I'd imagined, he took me to a small Italian place tucked in a neighborhood that clearly meant something to him. The kind of place where the owner greeted him with a warm hug and knowing eyes that swept over me with obvious curiosity. Denci, che passato tempo. An older woman with silver hair and warm brown eyes pulled him into an embrace, speaking rapid Italian before switching to accented English. And who is this bella ragazza? Nonna Rosa. This is Elena. Elena. This is Rosa Benedetti. She's been feeding me since I was 10 years old. Dante's hand found the small of my back, warm and possessive. Alina is special. Special? Rosa's eyes lit up with delight and speculation. Finally, you bring a nice girl. Come, I make you eat. She bustled us to a corner table, private but with a view of the entire restaurant. I noticed how Dante positioned himself with his back to the wall, eyes on the entrance. He was always watching, always aware. Even here, in this place that clearly felt like home, he couldn't fully relax. So, I said once we were settled with wine and bread, is this where you wine and dine all the women you've impressed with your near-death experiences? You're the first. He tore off a piece of bread, his movements still slightly stiff. I don't bring people here. This place is separate from the rest of my life. A reminder of simpler times. Before you became the most dangerous man in the city, I kept my voice light, but I was genuinely curious. Before I inherited my father's empire, yes. He took a sip of wine. Rosa knew my mother. She used to make Sunday dinners for our family when I was a kid. After my parents died, she kept that tradition going for me and my younger brother. This restaurant, these people, they're the closest thing I have to normal. Your parents died? I'd wondered about his family but hadn't wanted to pry. Car accident when I was 19. My brother Marco was 16. His jaw tightened. Officially, an accident. Unofficially, the brake lines were cut. Someone thought they could take my father's territory by eliminating him. What happened to them? The people who did it? They learned that eliminating my father just meant dealing with me instead. His eyes went cold, and I was angrier, more reckless, and far less merciful than he ever was. The food arrived before I could respond. It was pasta that smelled incredible, bread still warm from the oven, and wine that probably cost more than I wanted to know. Rosa fussed over us like we were her own children, and I saw a side of Dante I hadn't expected. He laughed at her stories, spoke Italian with obvious affection, and let himself be gently scolded for not visiting enough. She likes you, he said after Rosa finally left us alone. That's rare. She's very protective of me. Because you need protecting? I raised an eyebrow. The dangerous crime boss needs a 70-year-old Italian woman to fight his battles? Everyone needs someone who cares whether they eat properly and wear a coat when it's cold. His smile was genuine. Rosa provides that for me. Has since I lost my mother. She's family. Family. He said it with such weight, such certainty, like it was the most important thing in his world. Tell me about your family, he said, turning the conversation to me. The photos in your apartment, they're important to you. My parents still live in Ohio. Dad's a mechanic. Mom's a teacher. I twirled pasta on my fork. They think I'm crazy for working at a free clinic instead of taking a high-paying hospital job. But they support me anyway, even when they don't understand my choices. They sound like good people. They are. I met his eyes. They're also very normal, very safe people who would have a heart attack if they knew I was having dinner with someone who's been shot 7 times. Are you going to tell them? God, no. The thought was terrifying. My mother already worries I'm going to get mugged working in that neighborhood. If she knew I was dating, I stopped, realizing what I'd said. I mean seeing, not dating. We're just dating, he said it firmly. That's what this is, Alina. I'm courting you, making my intentions clear. If that's not what you want, tell me now and I'll back off. But don't pretend this is casual when we both know it's not. We barely know each other, I protested weakly. I know enough. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. I know you're brave enough to save a stranger in the rain. I know you value life above convenience. I know you work too hard at a job that doesn't pay enough because you believe in helping people. I know you're lonely, even though you hide it well. And I know that when I look at you, I feel something I haven't felt since before my parents died. Hope. The vulnerability in his admission cracked something inside me. Dante, I'm not asking you to fall in love with me tonight, Alina. I'm just asking you to give this a chance. Let me take you to dinner. Show you parts of my world that aren't dangerous. Prove that being with me isn't all violence and risk. What about the parts that are dangerous? I had to ask. The Volkov brothers who shot you, they're still out there. What happens when they find out you're alive? They already know. His voice hardened. We had a conversation yesterday. A very clear conversation about territory and respect and the consequences of trying to kill me. They won't be a problem anymore. What kind of conversation? Though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The kind that ends with bodies in the river. He said it flatly, with no apology. They came at me, Alina. They shot me 3 times and left me to die. That requires a response. You killed them. It wasn't a question. I eliminated a threat. He squeezed my hand. I won't apologize for protecting myself and my people. That's who I am. If you can't accept that, if you need me to be someone softer and safer, you should walk away now. The honest brutality of his words should have sent me running. But looking at him, this complicated, dangerous man who spoke of murder as casually as dinner plans, I found I couldn't judge him the way I should have. I should walk away, I said quietly. I should finish this meal, thank you for a lovely evening, and never see you again. But, his eyes searched mine, but I don't want to. The admission cost me. I should want to. I should be terrified of you, of what being with you means. But instead, I just want to know more. I want to understand how someone can be ruthless enough to kill, but gentle enough to care about an old Italian woman who feeds him pasta. People aren't one thing, Alina. His thumb traced circles on my palm. I'm capable of violence when it's needed, but I also value loyalty, family, and protecting those who can't protect themselves. Those things aren't contradictory. They're just complex. Complex is one word for it. But I was smiling despite myself. We talked for hours, about his childhood in this city, about my small-town upbringing, about the clinic and my patients, about his legitimate businesses and the gray areas he operated in. He didn't hide who he was or what he did, and I appreciated the honesty, even when it scared me. Walk with me, he asked as we finally left the restaurant, Rosa waving us off with promises to pack us leftovers next time. The neighborhood was quiet at this hour, streetlights casting golden pools on the sidewalk. Dante's hand found mine naturally, like we'd been doing this for years instead of hours. I noticed the car that followed us at a distance. His security, I assumed. Always watching, always protecting. Does it bother you? I asked. Never being alone, always having someone watching. It's necessary. He pulled me closer as we walked. People in my position are always targets. The security isn't about paranoia. It's about survival. That sounds exhausting. It is. He stopped walking, turning to face me, which is why moments like this matter. Why you matter. Because with you, even with Marco following us in that car, I feel like I can breathe. Like I'm just a man taking a walk with a woman who sees me, not the reputation. I do see you, I said softly. Maybe more than you're comfortable with. Good. His hand came up to cut my face. I want you to see all of me, Alina. The good, the bad, and the complicated. No illusions. No pretty lies. Just truth. Even when the truth is that you killed the men who shot you? Especially then. His thumb traced my lower lip. I won't hide who I am from you. I respect you too much for that. He kissed me then, gentle and claiming in equal measure. His lips were warm despite the cool night air, skilled in a way that suggested experience but tender in a way that suggested he cared. I melted into him, my hands finding his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath my palms. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. I should take you home, he said, though he made no move to release me. You should, I agreed. But I kissed him again anyway. The drive back to my apartment was quiet, charged with tension. Marco drove, the man from that first morning, I realized. Dante sat in the back with me, his hand never leaving mine. Can I see you again? He asked as we pulled up to my building. Tomorrow? I work until 8. I'll pick you up at 8:30. He pressed a kiss to my knuckles. Let me walk you up. You don't have to. I want to. We rode the elevator in silence, the small space making his presence overwhelming. At my door, I fumbled with my keys, hyper-aware of him behind me. Alina. His voice was low. I want to be very clear about something. I'm a patient man when it matters. I won't push you into anything you're not ready for. But I also want you to know my intentions. This isn't casual for me. You're not casual for me. What am I then? I turned to face him. Mine. Simple, direct, possessive. If you'll have me, with all my complications and dangers and moral gray areas, I'm claiming you, Alina. The question is whether you'll accept being claimed. That's very caveman of you. I'm Italian. We're passionate about what we want. His hand cupped my face. And I want you more than I've wanted anything in years. I should have been offended by the possessiveness. Should have asserted my independence and reminded him I wasn't property to be claimed. But looking into his eyes, seeing the genuine vulnerability beneath the command, I found I didn't want to. One day at a time, I said finally. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll figure out the rest as we go. I can work with that. He kissed me again. Deeper this time. Sleep well, Alina. Dream of me. Arrogant, I accused without heat. Honest. His smile was wicked. I'll be dreaming of you. After he left, I leaned against my closed door and tried to process what I'd just agreed to being claimed by Dante Caruso, to entering his world despite the dangers, to giving this impossible thing between us a real chance. My phone buzzed. A text from him. "Thank you for tonight, for giving me a chance. I won't waste it. D." I saved the message, knowing it was probably a mistake, knowing I was already in too deep to turn back now. But for the first time in 2 years, I felt alive, desired, and seen. And if that came with danger and complications, maybe it was worth it. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of work, dinners with Dante, and the slow realization that I was falling for a man who lived in a world I barely understood. He kept his promises, took things slow, and never pushed for more than I was ready to give. We had dinner at small restaurants where the owners greeted him like family. We walked through neighborhoods he clearly protected, where people nodded respectfully, but kept their distance. He showed me the legitimate side of his businesses, the construction projects creating affordable housing, the community center his family funded, and the scholarship program for local kids. But he also never hid the darker aspects. The calls he took in Italian, his voice cold and commanding. The meetings he had to cut our dates short for, apologetic but firm. The way his security detail grew from 1 car to 2 after what he called a minor territorial dispute. "Define minor," I'd said when he mentioned it. No one died. Like that was the metric for success. It should have terrified me. It should have sent me running back to my safe, predictable life. But instead, I found myself drawn deeper into his orbit, fascinated by the contradictions that made up Dante Caruso. Jenna noticed, of course. She always noticed. "Okay, you're definitely seeing someone," she announced during lunch at the clinic. "You've been glowing for 2 weeks, checking your phone constantly, and you actually bought a new dress last weekend." Spill. I'm not glowing. But I couldn't stop the smile. "You're totally glowing." Also blushing. "Oh my God, you're falling for someone." She leaned forward, eyes bright with curiosity. "Who is he? How did you meet? Why have you been hiding him from me?" "It's complicated," I hedged. "Complicated how? Is he married? Commitment phobic? Secretly a woman?" She gasped. "Is a patient. Please tell me you're not dating a patient. That's super unethical." "He's not a patient. Not really." That was technically true. Dante had never been an official patient, just a man I'd performed amateur surgery on in my apartment. And he's not married or commitment phobic. He's just different from anyone I've dated before. Different good or different bad? Both, I admitted. He's intense, protective, kind of possessive, but he's also surprisingly gentle and thoughtful. He listens when I talk, remembers things I mention, and makes me feel like I matter. He sounds perfect. Jenna's expression turned suspicious. "So what's the catch?" "Because there's always a catch. He's powerful, influential. He moves in circles I don't understand." All true, if vague. Dating him means accepting a level of visibility. Like paparazzi? She looked intrigued. "I see. Famous?" "No, not famous. Just known." I stood, needing to end this conversation before I revealed too much. "Look, it's still new. We're still figuring out what it is. When there's more to tell, you'll be the first to know. I'm holding you to that." But she let it drop, moving on to complain about the broken air conditioning in exam room 3. That evening, Dante picked me up at 8:30 as promised. But instead of taking me to another restaurant, he drove us to a high-rise building I'd passed 100 times but never entered. "Where are we going?" I asked as he pulled into an underground garage. "My place." He came around to open my door. I thought we could have a quiet night in. No restaurants, no security watching us eat. Just you and me. "Just you and me in your apartment?" I raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried about your intentions?" "Always." But his smile was warm. "Though my intentions tonight are purely honorable. I'm cooking you dinner." "You cook?" "I'm Italian. Of course I cook." He guided me to a private elevator. My mother made sure all her children could feed themselves properly. She said a man who couldn't cook was useless. Smart woman. I watched him insert a key card, noting the security measures. "This is a pretty fancy elevator for someone's apartment." "Penthouse," he said it casually. "The whole top floor." Of course it was. I tried not to feel overwhelmed as the elevator rose. I tried not to think about the differences between us. He owned a penthouse. I rented a studio apartment with questionable plumbing. The elevator opened directly into his home, and I couldn't suppress my gasp. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city sprawling below, lights glittering like stars. The space was masculine but elegant, with dark leather furniture, rich wood accents, and artwork that looked expensive and original. "This is beautiful," I said, moving toward the windows. "And terrifying. How high up are we?" 45th floor. He shrugged out of his jacket. "Make yourself comfortable. Wine? Please." I explored while he poured, noting the details. There were books stacked on tables, not just for show but clearly read. Photographs in simple frames showed people who must be his family. A guitar was in the corner, well worn. Despite the obvious wealth, the space felt lived in, personal. Here, he handed me a glass of red wine. I'm making carbonara. It'll take about 20 minutes. Any food allergies I should know about? No allergies, and carbonara sounds amazing. I took a sip of wine. It was rich, complex, and probably expensive. Do you cook often? When I can. He moved to the kitchen, which was an open concept with professional-grade appliances. It's meditative. It lets me think. I settled on a bar stool, watching him work. He moved with practiced efficiency, boiling water, whisking eggs, and cooking pancetta until it was perfectly crisp. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing those tattoos I'd memorized while stitching him back together. The wounds had healed well, barely visible now unless you knew where to look. Tell me something, he said as he worked. Why did you become a nurse? The predictable answer is that I wanted to help people. I swirled my wine. The honest answer is more complicated. When I was 16, my grandmother had a stroke. Watching the nurses care for her, seeing how they could bring comfort in the worst moments, I wanted to be that for someone. To be the person who helped when everything fell apart. That's not less noble than wanting to help people. He glanced at me. That's understanding that helping means being present in the darkness, not just the light. What about you? Did you always want to be what you are? A criminal? His lips curved slightly. No, I wanted to be a musician, actually. Drove my father crazy. He had plans for me to take over the family business, expand the territory, build the empire. But I wanted to write songs and play guitar. What changed? My parents died. He drained the pasta, his movements suddenly mechanical. And I realized I had two choices. Let everything they'd built fall apart, or step up and protect it. Protect Marco. Protect the people who depended on us. So I put away the guitar and picked up my father's responsibilities. Do you ever regret it? Every day. The honesty in his admission surprised me. But regret doesn't change reality. I made my choice, and I've lived with the consequences. I've built something I can be proud of, even if it's not what I originally wanted. He plated the carbonara with a flourish, and we moved to his dining table. The food was incredible, creamy, rich, and perfectly executed. We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before he spoke again. I need to tell you something. His tone made my stomach clench. About the Volkov brothers. You said they weren't a problem anymore. They're not. But the reason they're not a problem is because I made an example of them. He set down his fork. I want you to understand what that means, Alina. I didn't just kill them. I made sure everyone in my world knew what happens when you come after me. It was brutal, public, designed to send a message. Why are you telling me this? My appetite vanished. Because I won't lie to you. Because you deserve to know exactly who you're getting involved with. His dark eyes held mine. I'm not a good man, Alina. I do terrible things to protect what's mine. And you're mine now. Which means anyone who threatens you becomes my problem to solve, permanently. That's a lot of pressure. My voice came out shakier than I wanted. Being something you protect. I know. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. Which is why I'm giving you one more chance to walk away. After tonight, after you've seen my home and understood the full scope of what being with me means, you can leave. I'll have Marco drive you home, and you'll never hear from me again. Or you can stay. Accept being mine. Accept my protection and possessiveness and the violence that comes with my world. And if I choose to stay, then you're mine completely. His grip tightened. No halfway measures. No keeping one foot out the door. You're in my life. In my home. In my bed. You're the woman I introduced to my family. The one I protect above all others. You become my priority, Alina. My everything. The intensity of his words should have frightened me. Should have sent me running for the safety of my predictable life. But looking at him, this complicated, dangerous man who cooked me dinner and spoke of protection like it was a sacred duty, I found I didn't want to run. I need to ask you something first. I pulled my hand back, needing distance to think. The women you've been with before, what happened to them? There haven't been many. My late fiancée, Maria, died of cancer 3 years ago. Before her, a few casual relationships that ended amicably when we both lost interest. He stood, moving to refill our wine glasses. I don't do casual well, Alina. When I commit to someone, it's completely. Maria understood that, accepted it. The question is whether you can. Your fiancé died? I hadn't known that detail. I'm sorry. Sueni. He settled back in his chair. She was good. Too good for me and my world. But she loved me anyway. She accepted the violence and moral ambiguity because she believed there was something worth saving beneath it. Was there? She thought so. His smile was sad. I'm not sure I agreed with her then. But meeting you, seeing myself through your eyes, I think maybe she was right. Maybe there's something worth saving after all. I'm not her. I needed him to understand. I can't be a replacement for someone you lost. I know. He moved his chair closer to mine, his hand finding my face. You're not a replacement, Alina. You're something entirely new. Something I didn't know I needed until I found you in that alley, deciding I was worth saving. You keep saying that like it was some big decision, but it wasn't. I leaned into his touch, despite my uncertainty. You were hurt. I'm a nurse. It was that simple. Nothing about you is simple. His thumb traced my cheekbone. You're brave and compassionate and so determined to see the good in people, that you looked at a bleeding criminal and saw someone worth risking yourself for. That's not simple, Alina. That's extraordinary. He kissed me then, and I let myself sink into it. I let myself feel the heat and want and need that had been building between us for 2 weeks. His hands moved to my waist, pulling me from my chair onto his lap. I straddled him, my fingers tangling in his hair as the kiss deepened. Alina, he groaned against my mouth. If you want to stop, you need to tell me now. Because if we keep going, don't stop. The words came out breathless. I don't want you to stop. You're sure? He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. Because once we do this, you're mine. No going back. I'm already yours. The admission should have terrified me. Instead, it felt freeing. I have been since that night in the rain. We both know it. His eyes darkened with want and something deeper. Possession, satisfaction, triumph. Say it again. I'm yours, Danta. I kissed him softly. And you're mine, if you'll have me. Always. He stood, lifting me with him. Let me show you exactly how much. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the unfamiliar weight of an arm draped across my waist. For a disoriented moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then the night before came flooding back. Dante's penthouse, dinner, and the conversation that had led to his bedroom. Heat flooded my cheeks at the memory. He'd been gentle but demanding, taking his time to learn what made me gasp, what made me beg. We'd fallen asleep, tangled together, and apparently hadn't moved much during the night. You're thinking too loud, Dante murmured against my shoulder, his voice rough with sleep. I can feel you spiraling. I'm not spiraling. A lie. I was absolutely spiraling. Just processing. Regretting? His arm tightened around me. Not constraining, but protective. No. That at least was true. Just wondering what happens now. Do I get up, put on my clothes from yesterday, and do the awkward morning after thing? Or is there a protocol for this? The protocol, he said, rolling me to face him, is that you stay. We have breakfast. You borrow one of my shirts, and we acknowledge that everything changed last night. Very presumptuous of you. But I was smiling. Very accurate of me. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. You're mine now, Alina. Completely. Which means you don't sneak out at dawn or worry about protocols. You stay, and we figure out the rest together. Just like that? We had sex and now we're... What? Together? We were together before last night. His hand cupped my face. Last night just made it official. But if you need to hear me say it, Alina Hayes, will you be my girlfriend? My partner? The woman I introduce as mine without qualifications? The old-fashioned phrasing should have amused me. Instead, it made something warm bloom in my chest. Yes, I heard myself say. Yes, to all of that. His kiss was claiming, possessive, and full of promises. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Breakfast, he said firmly, though his eyes were dark with want. Then I need to make some calls. But tonight, dinner with my brother. I want Marco to officially meet the woman in my life. Meeting the family already? My stomach flipped with nerves. Isn't it a bit soon? Marco already knows about you. He drove me to your apartment 3 times. Dante was already out of bed, pulling on sweatpants. But I want him to meet you properly. As my girlfriend. Not just the nurse who saved my life. I watched him move around the room, comfortable in his space and his skin. The morning light revealed the scars I'd traced last night. The old bullet wounds, the knife marks, the roadmap of violence that covered his body. But also the gentler marks, my nails on his shoulders. The love bite I'd left on his collarbone in a moment of passion. You're staring again, he said, but he was smiling. I'm appreciating. I threw his words from last night back at him. You're very nice to look at. Come here. He held out a hand. Let me find you something to wear. Then I'm making you my famous frittata. His closet was the size of my entire apartment. There were rows of expensive suits, crisp shirts, and casual clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He pulled out a soft shirt that would swallow me. This will work. He helped me slip it on, his hands lingering on my skin. Perfect. I look like I'm wearing a tent. You look like you're wearing my clothes. There's a difference. His eyes heated. It reminds everyone who sees you that you're mine. Possessive much? Absolutely. No apology. I'm Italian. We're territorial about what we love. Love. The word hung between us, heavy with meaning. He'd said it casually, but his eyes held mine with an intensity that suggested it wasn't casual at all. Dante. Too soon? He cupped my face. I can't help how I feel, Alina. I've known since that night in the rain, since you looked at me like I was worth saving instead of a problem to avoid. I love you. I'm in love with you. And I'm not apologizing for saying it too soon or too intensely. That's who I am. My throat tightened with emotion. I think I love you too. Which is insane, because we've only known each other 2 weeks. Time doesn't matter. He kissed me softly. What matters is that you're mine and I'm yours. The rest is just details. Breakfast was comfortable. Domestic in a way I hadn't expected. Dante cooked while I sat at his kitchen island, both of us in sleepwear, talking about nothing and everything. He told me about Marco's upcoming birthday, about the expansion plans for his construction business. I told him about the new volunteer at the clinic, and about Mrs. Chen's latest batch of dumplings. It was normal conversation, except for the occasional interruption when his phone rang and he took calls in Italian, his voice hard and commanding. Business, he'd explain after. Nothing to worry about. But I noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened. What's wrong? I asked after the third call. Nothing you need to worry about. But he set down his fork. A territorial dispute. Someone's pushing into my area, thinking they can take advantage while I'm distracted. Distracted by me, you mean? Distracted by happiness. He reached across the table, finding my hand. I've been spending less time on business, more time with you. Some people see that as weakness. They're wrong, but they're testing boundaries anyway. Is it dangerous? It's manageable. But the way he said it suggested it was more serious than he wanted to admit. Marco's handling most of it. I just need to make a few appearances, remind people why they shouldn't test me. The violence you mentioned. I pulled my hand back. This is that, isn't it? The part of your life that's not dinners and construction projects. Yes, he didn't hide from it. I told you what I am, Alina, what my world requires. If you stay with me, you'll see this side occasionally. The phone calls, the late-night meetings, the days where I come home with blood on my knuckles. Have you killed anyone since we've been together? I had to ask. No. He met my eyes steadily. But I've hurt people. Sans message. Made examples. That's part of maintaining power in my world. If I show weakness, people die. My people. Innocent people caught in the crossfire. So I do what's necessary to prevent that. That's a lot of weight to carry. I moved around the table to stand in front of him. Having to be violent to prevent more violence. It is. He pulled me onto his lap, his arms around my waist. Which is why moments like this matter. Why you matter. Because with you, I get to be just Dante. Not the boss, not the enforcer. Just a man who loves a woman. That's very sweet for someone who just admitted to hurting people this week. I contain multitude. He nuzzled my neck. And you make the darkness easier to bear. We spent the rest of the morning in his apartment, comfortable in a way that should have taken months to develop. He worked in his home office while I read on his couch, both of us content just being in the same space. It felt domestic, real, like a glimpse of what our life could be if we let it. Around 2, he emerged from his office with an apologetic expression. I need to go handle something. It'll take a few hours. You can stay here if you want, or Marco can drive you home. What do you want me to do? I asked. Stay. No hesitation. Make yourself comfortable. There's food in the kitchen, books everywhere. The TV has every streaming service. Stai, Alina. Let my home become your home. That's moving pretty fast. We've established I'm intense. But his eyes held a genuine question. Too fast? I thought about going back to my tiny apartment and spending the afternoon alone. Then I thought about staying here, surrounded by his things, waiting for him to come home. I'll stay, I decided. But you're making me dinner when you get back. Deal. He kissed me thoroughly. I'll text you when I'm on my way. And Alina, thank you for being here, for staying, for choosing me despite all the complications. After he left, I explored his apartment more thoroughly. His bedroom was massive, the bed we'd shared large enough for 3 people. The bathroom was all marble and glass, with a shower that had more settings than my car. His closet was organized with military precision, but it was his study that revealed the most. Photographs were on the walls, him with a younger man who must be Marco, both grinning at the camera. An older couple I assumed were his parents. A beautiful woman with warm eyes, Maria, probably his late fiancée, Books line the shelves, everything from business texts to classic literature to, surprisingly, poetry. His guitar sat in the corner, and I picked it up carefully. It was well maintained but showed signs of use, with worn frets and a small scratch near the sound hole. I strummed experimentally, the sound filling the quiet space. He used to play all the time. I spun, nearly dropping the guitar. Marco stood in the doorway, looking apologetic. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. Dante asked me to check on you. Make sure you're comfortable." He gestured to the guitar. He was really good. Had offers from record labels before everything changed. What changed? I set the guitar down carefully. Our parents died. And suddenly he had responsibilities that didn't leave room for music. Marco moved into the study, his eyes on the photographs. He gave up everything he wanted to protect me, to keep the family business running. He never complained, never resented it. He just stepped up because someone had to. That must have been hard for both of you. It was. Marco turned to me, his expression serious. "Which is why I need you to understand something, Alina. My brother, he doesn't let people in. Not since Maria died. The fact that he's letting you into his life, into his home, that means something. It means he's trusting you with the softest parts of himself. I know that." I crossed my arms defensively. "I'm not going to hurt him." "I don't think you will." His voice softened, but I needed to say it anyway. "Dante is the strongest person I know, but everyone has a breaking point. Losing Maria nearly destroyed him. If he loses you, he won't." The certainty in my voice surprised me. "I'm not going anywhere, Marco. I love him, even though it's fast and probably crazy. I love him." Marco's smile was genuine. "Good, because he loves you too. More than I've seen him love anything since Maria. You make him happy, Alina. You make him remember what it's like to be just a man instead of always being the boss. That's a lot of pressure. That's love." He moved toward the door. "Dinner tonight at 7. Dante wants to do it properly. Introduce you to the family. Make it official. You good with that?" "Terrified, but good," I admitted. "Perfect." His grin was wicked. "Terrified means you care. See you at 7. After he left, I settled back on the couch with a book from Dante's shelf. Poetry, surprisingly. But I couldn't focus on the words. My mind kept drifting to tonight, to meeting his family officially, to what it meant that I was being welcomed into this world so completely. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jenna. "You didn't come home last night either. You're dead in a ditch or you finally got laid. Please tell me it's the latter." I smiled, typing back. "Definitely the latter. And it's serious, Jen. Like meeting the family serious." Her response was immediate. Détails. "Coffee tomorrow? I need to hear everything." "You really don't," I typed. "But coffee sounds good." Because how could I possibly explain to Jenna that I'd fallen in love with a crime boss, that I was wearing his shirt in his penthouse, waiting for him to come home from doing God knows what? She'd think I was insane. And maybe I was. But as I settled back to wait for Dante, his home warm and comfortable around me, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. Insane or not, this was where I wanted to be. Dante arrived home at 6, looking tired but satisfied. There was blood on his knuckles, not his, I realized, and a tension in his shoulders that spoke of violence recently committed. But his eyes softened when he saw me curled on his couch. "You stayed." Simple words, but they carried weight. I stayed. I set down the book. "Though you should probably clean your hands before we talk about our day." He glanced at his knuckles, seeming to notice the blood for the first time. "Right. Give me 10 minutes. He disappeared into the bedroom, and I heard the shower running. When he emerged, he was changed into fresh clothes, dark jeans, and a black button-down. He looked more like the man I'd had breakfast with, less like the enforcer who'd spent the afternoon reminding people not to cross him. "How bad?" I asked as he settled beside me on the couch. "Handled." He pulled me against him, his arm around my shoulders. "No one died, if that's what you're asking. But a few people learned that testing my boundaries has consequences. Your knuckles were bleeding. Their faces were worse. No apology. I won't lie to you about what I do, Alina. But I also won't give you details you don't need. Is that fair?" "I don't know." I turned to face him. "Part of me wants to know everything, to understand your world completely. But another part is scared of what I'll find if I look too closely." "That's reasonable." His hand found mine. "You don't have to understand everything right away. We can take it slow. Let you adjust to my world gradually. We're having dinner with your brother in an hour. That's not exactly slow. Marco you've already met, and he likes you, which matters." Dante pressed a kiss to my temple. "Tonight is just making it official. Showing him that you're important to me, that you're part of my life now. No pressure then." But I was smiling. "You'll be fine." He stood, pulling me up with him. But you should probably change. Not that I don't love seeing you in my shirt, but meeting the family requires slightly more formal attire. I don't have anything here. I gestured to my yesterday's clothes draped over a chair. Unless you want me wearing a wrinkled dress from last night. About that. He led me to his bedroom, opening the closet to reveal a section I hadn't noticed earlier. Women's clothes, new, with tags still attached, and clearly expensive. I took the liberty of having some things brought in. Your size. Various styles. Nothing crazy, just options. I stared at the clothes. There were dresses, jeans, and casual wear. All exactly my style. When did you have time to do this? This morning, while you were sleeping. I called my assistant, gave her your size and preferences, and asked her to put together a wardrobe. He shifted, suddenly uncertain. Too much? I can return everything if it's too much. It's very much. But I was touching a soft sweater, running my fingers over the beautiful fabric. Also very thoughtful. How did you know my size? I pay attention. His arms circled my waist from behind. The jeans you wear to the clinic. The dress you wore for our first dinner. I notice everything about you, Alina. That's borderline creepy. That's being in love. He kissed my neck. Pick something. We need to leave in 30 minutes. I chose a simple dress, deep blue, fitted but not tight. It was elegant without being over the top, paired with heels that somehow fit perfectly. I felt more put together than I had in months. Perfect, Dante murmured, his eyes tracking my movements as I checked myself in the mirror. You're absolutely perfect. I'm nervous. I turned to face him. Meeting family is a big step, Dante. What if Marco doesn't like me? He already told you he likes you. Dante adjusted his watch. And even if he didn't, it wouldn't matter. You're mine, Alina. My choice, my partner, my love. Marco's opinion, while valued, doesn't change that. The possessiveness should have bothered me. Instead, it calmed my nerves. He'd chosen me, claimed me, and that meant something in his world. The restaurant was the same place Rosa ran, and she greeted us with obvious delight. Dunci, and Bella Alina. Come, I have the perfect table for you. Marco was already there, standing as we approached. Up close and in better lighting, I could see the resemblance between the brothers. They had the same dark eyes and strong features. But where Dante carried tension like a shield, Marco seemed more relaxed, his smile genuine. Alina. He pulled me into a brief hug. Good to see you again. Under better circumstances this time. Much better. I settled into the chair Dante held out for me. Thank you for everything that first morning. I should be thanking you. Marco's expression turned serious. If you hadn't found him, if you hadn't brought him home and patched him up, I'd be planning a funeral right now instead of having dinner with my brother and his girlfriend. Some would say I should have just called 911. Some people don't understand our world. Dante's hand found mine under the table. But you did, Alina. You understood that hospitals meant questions, police, and exposure. You protected me, even before you knew who I was. That matters. Dinner was easier than I expected. Marco was charming and funny, asking questions about my work at the clinic, and genuinely listening to the answers. He told stories about growing up with Dante, about their parents, and about the music career Dante had abandoned. He was really good, Marco said, gesturing with his wine glass. Record labels calling, gigs at real venues, and he gave it all up to take care of me, to keep the family business running. I did what was necessary. Dante's voice was firm, and I don't regret it. You should have had a choice. Marco's eyes held old pain. You were 19, Dante. You should have been in college or touring with a band, not running a criminal empire. Life rarely gives us the choices we want. Dante squeezed my hand, but sometimes it gives us unexpected gifts. Like Alina, who walked into my life when I needed her most. Very smooth, I murmured. Very true. He lifted my hand to his lips. You saved my life, Alina. In more ways than just the medical intervention. Oh God, they're gonna be sickeningly sweet all night, aren't they? But Marco was grinning. We talked for hours, the restaurant emptying around us. Rosa kept bringing food, endless courses of pasta, bread, and desserts. She fussed over us like family, which I was beginning to realize we were. Not by blood, but by choice. So when do I get to meet the rest of the family? I asked as we finally prepared to leave. Parents, cousins, the whole Italian family experience? The brothers exchanged glances. It's just us, Marco said quietly. Our parents died. Extended family is complicated. Most of them don't approve of the business, so they keep their distance. I'm sorry. I looked between them. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. Dante's arm around me tightened. You're our family now, Alina. You and Rosa, and the few people we trust. That's what matters. Small but loyal, Marco added. Quality over quantity. Outside, Marco said his goodbyes with another hug. Take care of him, he said quietly. He acts tough, but he needs someone. He needs you. I will, I promised. The drive back to Dante's penthouse was quiet and comfortable. His hand never left mine, his thumb tracing absent patterns on my palm. That went well, I said as we rode the elevator up. Better than well. He pulled me close. Marco loves you. Rosa loves you. Which means you're officially part of my family, small as it is. Is that what this was? En initiation? That was me showing the people I love most that I've found someone worth keeping. The elevator doors opened, and making it clear to everyone in my world that you're under my protection. That touching you means starting a war they can't win. Always so dramatic. Always so honest. He led me inside, immediately pulling me into his arms. I love you, Alina Hayes. And I'm keeping you forever, if you'll let me. Forever is a long time. But I was kissing him. Not long enough. His hands spanned my waist. Stay with me. Not just tonight, but every night. Move in properly. Make this place ours instead of mine. That's moving very fast. My heart raced with possibility and fear. We've only been together 2 weeks. I've known since the first night. His forehead pressed against mine. Since you looked at me bleeding in the rain and decided I was worth saving. I'm not patient when it comes to things I want, Alina. And I want you here. In my home, in my bed, in my life, permanently. What about my apartment? My job? Keep the apartment if you want. Or let me buy you something bigger, better. Keep working at the clinic. I'd never ask you to give that up. Just come home to me at the end of the day. Let this be where you belong. I should have said it was too soon, too much, too fast. I should have insisted on taking things slow and maintaining my independence. But looking into his eyes, seeing genuine vulnerability beneath the commanding exterior, I found I didn't want to. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll move in. But slowly, bringing my things gradually, keeping my apartment for a few months, just in case. Just in case what? His eyes darkened. In case you decide I'm too dangerous, too complicated, too much? No, in case I need space. I cupped his face. I love you, Dante. But I'm also terrified of losing myself in you, in your world. I need to know I can still be Alina, still have my independence. You'll always be Alina. He kissed me softly. Strong, compassionate, brave Alina who saves strangers in the rain. I don't want to change you. I want to love you exactly as you are, even when I'm stubborn, especially then. His smile was wicked, though I reserve the right to argue back. I wouldn't expect anything less. We spent that night tangled together, making promises in whispered words and gentle touches. And when I woke the next morning to sunlight and his arm around me, I knew I'd made the right choice. 3 months later, my things had gradually migrated to Dante's penthouse until my old apartment sat empty, except for some furniture. I still worked at the clinic, still maintained my independence, but I came home to him every night. I fell asleep in his arms and woke to his kisses. It wasn't always easy. There were nights he came home with blood on his hands, days when his business required a violence I didn't want to know about. But there were also quiet mornings making breakfast together, evenings where he played guitar while I read, and moments of perfect domesticity that made the complications worthwhile. I have something for you, he said one morning over coffee. If it's another closet full of clothes, it's a key. He set a small box on the counter. To the penthouse. Official. Permanent. Yours. I already have a key. I'd been using his spare for weeks. That's my spare. This is yours. Your name on the deed. Your home as much as mine. His eyes held mine. I want you to know this is real, Alina. Not temporary. Not conditional. This is your home because you're my home. I opened the box, finding a key attached to a small charm, a medical caduceus. That's very sentimental for a dangerous crime boss. I contain multitude. He pulled me onto his lap. And you bring out the sentimental side. Say you'll stay. Not just for now, but forever. Forever is still a long time. I know. He kissed me softly. But I'm a patient man when it matters. I'll wait as long as you need to be sure. I'm already sure. I wrapped my arms around his neck. I love you, Dante Caruso. Dangerous, complicated, impossibly intense you. And yes, I'll stay. Forever. His smile was devastating. You just made me the happiest man alive. Good. I kissed him thoroughly. Because you make me happier than I ever thought possible. We sat there in the morning light, planning a future that should have been impossible. A nurse and a crime boss, brought together by rain and violence and the choice to save a stranger. Sometimes the most dangerous choices lead to the safest havens. Sometimes loving the wrong person turns out to be exactly right. And sometimes, finding a wounded man in the rain means finding home.